All right, holiday weekend. It's fall, kind of fall break. I have my kids here. I have no school, so we have another design. This one is going a little bit closer to that one that works with a larger surface area of tape. I noticed the other one had little flaps of tape. I didn't know whether or not that's actually creating electric charge on either, not creating electric charge, capturing charge, like a dielectric in the air. I don't know if it's becoming polarized, but I was going to try this design. This is the first time I'm trying it. So I haven't tried this before. So we're going to see if this works and how it may differ from the working design. Let me get that positioned. It's not working at all. Oh, wait. Okay. So it goes up. Crashing. So it's discharging, it's crashing back down and being attracted. Ow. Get back down. Land. Land. All right. Oh, jeez. It's kind of very Wright brother-ish. So, get another angle. Come on. Land it. Take off. And crash. Okay. So that's interesting to talk about. So we're seeing that behavior is that initially it's pretty well stuck there until I apply a little bit of pressure for it to come up. Once it comes up, it floats, but then we can hear the audible discharge. Discharges, crashes back down. So obviously we're losing charge on this. When reviewing the video on how spiders are able to take flight, they are often going through a process where they anchor themselves down on a hill, receive a charge, spray their web up, and they're able to fly away. So with this though, this is a positive charge that's going on here. So there's a lot of things that are already working against it. Any kind of grounding at all will just send this right back down. It kind of reminds me of the story of Icarus, that maybe it wasn't the sun and wax melting that would have been his demise. If we were to take any kind of apply the same logic to the past, that obviously any winged structure on the human frame, there's no way to generate enough lift through aerodynamics for that to work. If the story is at all a cultural memory rooted in a real happening, if that is true, which is a leap within itself, the only possible explanation would have been some sort of electrostatic flight in this same sort of breath. I'm not sure how that would work on the human, the average person's weight, or how much weight plays a factor with how much surface area. I'm not sure with all the dynamics. So the story just may not be even rooted in anything that's real, but it gives us something to speculate about, a starting point to discuss. It's this idea of a discharge that can cause flight to suddenly end, and how that affects us. Like, I don't know if there's going to be an ideal distance. This needs to be away from our electrostatic source in order to validate a design. I know some of the other designs did not work at all. This at least created lift, and it was attracted back down. That was much more than I was getting out of the other designs. So we're definitely on the right path in coming up with a framework of design that will work with these, I guess, electric or electrostatic kites. I'm not really sure how to describe these. I would love if other people would be interested in this as kind of like a toy hobby, because it would give a lot more impressions of what designs work. But of course, not everyone has a Van de Graaff. No, not everyone has a electrostatic source, and I don't even, obviously the Van de Graaff would not have been an historical electrostatic source. For that, we'd look to things like the insulated rod experiment from Benjamin Franklin's Sentry Box. For those that don't know, one of the most famous electrocutions that occurred in science was with Georg Wilhelm Rickmann. He was an Austrian scientist, I believe, that was living in Russia. Did an experiment with an insulated rod during a lightning storm, where the rod gets charged because it's not connected to ground. And you can basically get, like if you're an electrician, this is you're getting secondary discharge by having a wire that's connected to ground, and you can get a standing electrical discharge from the insulated rod. So it's collecting electrostatic source, but in a lightning storm, not a good idea. Either George, I don't know how they pronounce it locally, but George Rickman basically died of electrocution when lightning struck the rod, and he was experimenting on it. So there's some caution to take when it comes to what the electrostatic source may have been historically, as I do not have the proper safety measures to account for that kind of discharge. Van de Graaff is much safer. There's only a certain amount of charge that can be collected on me because of the human capacitance is only like 100 to 200 picofarads, meaning that any sort of static charge I build could be a million volts. Doesn't matter, because the amount of time it takes for a capacitor like my body to discharge is perfectly safe. So yeah, the only thing is that when we start talking about the idea of increasing capacitance in order to generate more lift, if that's indeed the working principle here, then it becomes problematic in safety precautions that are needed, especially when we want something to do a heavier payload that's not reliant on electrostatic source on the ground, but maybe electrostatic source that's actually on the kite itself when you're discussing heavier payloads. So it's just very interesting. Again, with the design, it's gaining lift. The ionic thrust, I don't think has anything to do with the repelling. We do feel ionic wind coming from the tips of these, but these are parallel to the ground. They're not acting as the lift portion of this design. It's the repelling of this. So I don't know whether or not, if there was a way to stop the discharge on the ends, if that would actually make the kite more efficient. So it's some things to consider as we move forward. Thanks for your time.